Hello, my name is Kevin. This is Dirty 20 Gaming, and this week I'm going to start by eating a little bit of crow. If you've seen any of the other work on this channel, you know that I am not a fan of power gaming. You know what? Let's do this right. That is an understatement. Let me try this again. I have been actively outspoken in my dislike of power gaming. I don't like min max builds. I don't like synergy choices where you pick a race and a background to maximize the skills that you're going to need for the class that you chose. I don't like building parties based on overall efficacies. Oh, we need a bard and then we need a paladin and we need a cleric and I'll do this and I'll do that. I don't like those either. But here's the thing. I have been guilty of overgeneralization. I presented Power Gamers as a group, as players who don't or won't roleplay. And that's just flat out wrong. I was recently presented with the statement building a powerful, effective character does not preclude good roleplay on the part of the player. And I had to admit that that's true. At the time, I did try to defend my original position. I claimed that while that statement was true, that in my personal experience, most players who built powerful, maximally effective characters tended to not roleplay as deeply as other players. But even as I was saying it, I knew I wasn't being fair. I mean, overgeneralization leads to stereotypes and false flag arguments. And as I was saying it, I was thinking to myself, I did protest too much. I oversimplified and I overstated. So I changed the way I think about power gaming. I got rid of that part that says power gamers aren't role players, because it's not true. Then I reprocessed. And I still didn't like power gaming. So I had to figure out why, and I think I figured it out. I think this is a more accurate statement. I still don't like the idea of building characters that use the mechanics of the game to create characters designed to dominate combat. But the reason I don't like it is that it's like playing a video game on easy when you're good enough to beat that game on veteran. So that's enough of that. All this talk about power gaming and role playing leads me to the topic I actually wanted to talk about today. Considering what I just said, I feel like I need to preface this by saying that the following is a set of generalizations, probably overgeneralizations. Lots of players fall into two or more of these following types. Another thing is, in my opinion, your table will be better if you have a spread of different player types. And one more thing, this is not an all-inclusive list. This is just a list of the player types that I like to have at my table, the ones I enjoy gaming with. Let's start with this one for a reason. The Talker. One of the reasons I'm going to start with it is because it's me. When I'm at a game, I'm the one that's talking probably more than most of the other people at the table. Almost every group has one of these, and it's not a bad thing. Now, another thing with these characters is I'm talking about the player that talks a lot, not necessarily the character. I'm not talking about the face of the party. I'm talking much more about the most verbal player, not the most verbal character. And there's a huge spectrum of these people. There's the ones that are not that much fun, the ones that not only do they talk over all the time, but they basically take over the game. They make decisions for the party without checking with other people. They just talk and talk and talk. If the DM's not talking, it's them talking. And that's one end of the spectrum, and you need to, as a GM, you need to take those people off to the side after a session and privately ask them to back down a little bit and let the other people play too. But that's only one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum, the good ones, are the ones that know how to talk, to move the game along, to get everything out of this scene that there is to get out of it. All the information, all the role play, all the combat, all the diamonds out of the case, whatever the thing is. You get them all, and then you get out of the scene. And a good talker knows how and when to do that. Another thing a good talker does is they engage the other players. In fact, for me, that's probably the biggest difference between a good talker and a talker with which you have to have a word, is that the good talker engages the other party members without being prompted to do so by the DM. They engage the DM in scenes. They know when to talk. They know it's not all about them and it's time to share the stage, but they still do most of the talking. One of the things about these people, and this one I find really funny, lots of players in lots of games think that they're the talker, and they'll come up to you afterwards and say, "I'm sorry, I talked so much during tonight, and I'll let other people talk next week." And you go back over it in your head, and they didn't talk too much. They talked just the right amount. And the thing with those people is you have to tell them, game all you want. You came here to play. Play. I will tell you if you're talking too much. If I'm not going, keep coming, keep talking, let's play. So that's the talker. And yeah, there's a lot of us. Next, this is one of my favorites. Some people do not like this player at their table, but I love them. The question asker. Now, let me be clear. This is not a rules lawyer. And if you want to know the difference, I'll tell you in a second. But first, the question asker doesn't, the biggest difference is they're not asking questions to break or manipulate the rules. They want to, exactly the opposite in most cases. They want to make sure they're not breaking the rules. So they ask you about range so they know if they can use a spell. They ask you, can I see them from where I am? Can I use this spell to do this thing? Rules lawyers tend to start with, well, it says in the book. Question askers tend to start with, I don't want to bother, but can I? And we're telling stories and we're saying yes and sometimes we're saying yes but. When someone comes to you with can I, you gotta love that person. The other thing with these people is that they're trying, often they're asking you questions because they're about to try something really crazy, creative, and original and interesting. And they want to make sure that it's going to work. So let them ask their questions, answer the ones you can. I mean, as the GM, sometimes you have to say, you'll have to try and find out, or something like that. But a lot of these questions are things that the character would know. So let them answer the questions for them. Make this easy for them. And then one more thing about this group of people, these question askers. Another reason I love each and every one of them is because they make me a better storyteller. When I know there's a question asker at the table, and I always try and have one because it forces me to do this, I describe the scenes more clearly. I give them distances and directions. I describe, because I don't want them to have to ask, I describe the temperatures and the sight lines and where the smoke is coming from and who they can see, who they can't see, who they can recognize, who they don't know as just odd shapes in the dark. The more information I give them, the less questions they need to ask. But the little buggers always come up with more questions. So give them as much as you can and then answer the rest of them for them, with the only caveat to that being sometimes you have to say, you'll just have to try that and find out. Another type of player, and these ones are awesome too, the quiet dropper of bombshells. This is a player who is engaged. I mean, they're not sitting in the corner on their phone or sitting in the corner watching everybody else play. They are engaged. They're just not being verbal or very verbal. They respond when people bring them into conversations. They have opinions when it's time to have an opinion, but they're not the talker. If you engage them, they come with you. That's a big difference between an unengaged player and an engaged player. If you see someone who's being quiet or hasn't said something in a while, and you bring them into the conversation, the bartender turns to their character specifically and says, "You've been quiet. What is your opinion on this?" The dropper of bombshells will have that conversation. They'll have that scene with you, but they're probably not going to start a lot of scenes on their own. But they also really tend to be team players, really strong team players. They tend to be, a lot of them are support characters. So, in other words, they're supporting as a class, but they're also supportive as a personality type in the party. They don't necessarily have strong opinions, but they tend to be the ones that cast that final vote when it's 2-2 in the party, and they all turn to this person to make that final decision. And then once in a while, this person invariably has a brilliant idea, makes a smart decision, or comes up with a way around a problem that nobody else did or probably could have thought a way around. And everybody, whether you're at a real table or sitting around a virtual table, everybody goes and looks at them like that because they were not expecting it. But this is what this player does. They change the game with a sentence. They can completely redirect a scene. And I don't know because I'm not one of them, but I get the very strong suspicion that they quite often don't know that that's what's about to happen. They finally just went, "No, damn it, those are all stupid ideas, and I better say something." And then they do, and it's freaking brilliant, and they save the day. And come on. I mean, this game's about heroes. It doesn't get much better than that. The quiet hero, right? My only advice with players like this, let them be themselves. But the only other advice I will offer you is pay them off. When they have these brilliant ideas, figure out a way in game to pay off this character. If you can't think of anything else, give them inspiration. If you are quicker on your feet, they make a new friend in this game. You just turned an NPC from a neutral person to a close personal follower of the party. Or you have earned the respect of the local police department to the point where they'll let stuff slide when you do it. Pay them off. These bombshells are amazing moments in the game. Pay them off for doing it. This next one, probably not for everybody, but I wouldn't play a game without one of these people. The emotional person. This is not somebody who just weeps all the time. That's not that person. It's the one who makes the party's enemies feel like people. They feel bad about killing even their enemies. I mean, probably not bad about smashing a bunch of, evil sorcerers or something, but when they have to kill guards, they're the ones who have their characters say, "Well, I feel bad because that dude's probably got a wife and 3 kids." They bring the emotion into the game and they force the other players to face it in a realistic way. The idea of a group of people just killing another group of people, looting their dead bodies, and then just walking away, not even showing no signs of respect for the dead, not even pulling them off the road if that's where the fight was. That is sociopathic behavior. That's not, I think, how real people would deal with that. No matter how many times you have that encounter, that's still a person. And somebody in the party, if they're willing to pay that off over and over again, it will make that party play much more realistically. These emotional players also tend to see the long term consequences of the party's actions, and they worry constantly if they're actually making the world a better place. And they share that with the party, and it makes the party think. It makes them face tough, moral, ethical, challenging decisions, which, in my mind, is where a great amount of role playing comes from. One thing with the emotional player, they are capable of emotionally destroying other characters, NPCs, and even sometimes their GMs. So handle with care. They respond emotionally, but they are masters of those emotions too. And on more than one occasion, I have taken one of these people on a ride down a dark and scary story, only to have them drag me kicking, screaming, and crying for my mommy out the end or the other end of that same story. So I'm a glutton for punishment, but don't ever let that stop you from having an emotional person in your party. It is a whole different realm that a lot of people don't get in their games. Next one, not everybody is this lucky. If you get a chance to play with an actor or actors, if you can get a local studio group or performance arts group to sit around your table and play D&D, you are in for a friggin' treat. They get all the way into their characters. They are gone. Fred, who's a waiter during the day and does Hamlet at night, is gone, and it's now Hermitage, the monk, who is sitting before you. They know how to share the stage with each other and with other people. They know how to engage other party members and build scenes. They understand timing. They understand yes and yes but. They know how to keep a scene moving. They know when a scene comes to an end, the logical place where it's going to be. They know how to end scenes. They tend to bring voices, accents, quirks, weirdnesses, oddities to their characters, and then they remember to keep them, unlike a lot of us who bring these weirdnesses to a character and then completely forget that they've got an accent 3 sessions later. Also, most of them are natural storytellers. They want to go with you. They want to tell you this tale. They want to have a good time. They're there for the same reason that you are. So if you can get one or more actors at your table, lucky, lucky you. There is one more, and I thought about leaving this one out, but I like having one of these at my table. What can I say? I'll just be honest about it. The Dark Bastard. You know what? Every table needs a Dark Bastard. They invariably come with some god-awful backstory. They're hideously broken emotionally. They want nothing in the world but vengeance, violence, and anger. That's all that's left. And to me, that offers a chance for one of my favorite story arcs, which is redemption. Making up for horrible things you've done in the past. It's one of my favorites. I mean, okay, vengeance is there too, but it's overdone. I want my Dark Bastard to rise from the ashes at the end of an adventure and be that much more heroic because of where they started. I want them, and I expect them, and I know they will, present opportunities for inter-party tension. As the Dark Bastard does something or suggests doing something that is morally abhorrent to the rest of the party, and the others resist them doing it, and it leads to inter-party tension, which again, if you're following a story arc like Redemption or even coming of age story arc, there's these opportunities to grow and to make this dark bastard, he's never going to not be a dark bastard, but he's going to be a dark hero by the end of it if you do this right. They're also great fun when they're played in such a way that when they cut loose, they cut loose. So when they go to get drunk in the tavern with everybody else and suddenly they start telling dirty dwarf jokes, and it's so out of character, it can fold up your table. It can put people on their backsides unable to breathe from the sheer glorious, wonderful laughter of it. So there's that too. There's also the Dark Bastard will present that foil for that completely happy, buoyant, positive, "wee, the world is great" character that quite often ends up in a party. If you got one of those and a Dark Bastard, just kick back and enjoy it, because those scenes write themselves. There are many more types of players, of course, and there's a lot of crossover. Players will be 2 or 3 or 4 of these things that I just talked about. But these are some of my favorites, and these are some of the archetypes, if you will, for players that I look for when I'm looking to build a party, to put a game together. So all of these types are fun. They bring different things to the table. They interact with each other, I think. And if I'm going to have 4 people at the table, I just gave you 6 different categories. I'll take any 4 of those, or crossovers. You know, I'll take the Dark Bastard actor who also is the talker. Sure, yeah, let's have an anti-hero. Let's do that. I'll take any of these combinations, but I want a combination. I want every player at my table to be as different as every character. And with that, I have been talking for ages. This has got to be one of the longest one of these I've ever done. So until next time, as always, thank you for watching and game creatively. Bye.